biodiverse nation. So we all know India is one of the 12 mega biodiversity countries in the world. It is divided into 10 biogeographic regions, and it has diverse physical features and climatic conditions. So this, due to this diverse nature of physical features and climatic conditions, India forms a diverse ecological habitats. So we have habitats ranging from forests, from deserts, from grasslands, we have wetlands, coastal areas, marine ecosystems, so and so on. So इसी climatic diversity की वजह से we have diverse habitats in India, diverse climatic conditions. So it is based upon the altitudes and the latitudes. So climatic conditions बहुत different हैं, इसीलिए biodiversity India में ज़्यादा है. So all these diverse habitat forms are responsible for maintaining and sustaining immense biodiversity. Then we also discussed that India is situated at a tri-junction of three reams: कौन से थे वो? Afrotropical, Indo-Malayan and Paleo-Arctic. So this is again a very unique thing with India. So features from all these three elements are being assembled, and this again is making it very rich in biodiversity. And then we talked about India being center of origin of plants or animals. So जहाँ से plants origin हुए हैं. So center of origin of plants basically. So what do you understand by center of origin?
जहाँ से वो start हैं basically.
Exactly. So India is one of the 12 center of origins. Then we discussed the biodiversity of different categories of different life forms in India. उसमें हमने mammals discuss किया, birds, we discussed plants, lower plants, and we also talked about species of insects, butterflies, and everything. So this is this data actually shows us that India is a mega diverse nation. It is able to support enormous biodiversity ranging from small animals to big animals to plants, lower plants, and each and everything is there. And it is also showing a high degree of endemism if we see the flowering plants. So this is not found elsewhere in the world. So a degree of endemism is also very high in India. So among the amphibians, 62% are unique to India. And if we see lizards, then 50% are endemic to India. Then endemism is also for insects, marine worms, centipedes, flies, and freshwater sponges. So for all these life forms also, there is a high degree of endemism. Okay, and endemism is restricted not only to the wild plants, but also there is a great diversity of cultivated crops too. So those crops which have been cultivated, which have been domesticated, उनका भी variety in हमारे country में काफी ज़्यादा है. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And
yes, ma'am.
If we come to the gene banks, then gene banks have a collection of around 34,000 cereals, 22,000 pulses which are grown in India. And India has 27 indigenous breeds of cattle, 40 breeds of sheep, 22 breeds of goats, and 8 breeds of buffaloes. And we have cultivars of varieties of a number of crops ranging from rice to other cereals, vegetables and fruits, and these are found more in Western Ghats or the area which has high biodiversity, so which also includes the Northeast and the Himalayan region. So this slide shows India's scenario if we compare different life forms, where what is the ranking and what is the number of species. So this again proves the point that India is a mega diverse nation. So in mammals category, it is standing at 8th rank. For birds, it's also sorry, for reptiles 5th, amphibians 15, then angiosperms 15 to 20th. Now that we have discussed biodiversity in much detail, and also we have discussed about the climatic conditions which are contributing to this enormous biodiversity in our country, we have enumerated the different biogeographic zones of our country, and we have identified what features are leading to which kind of biodiversity. So now that we have studied it, it would be more easier to understand what is a biodiversity hotspot. Have you ever read about it? Biodiversity hotspots?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so can anyone explain?
Yes, ma'am. असाइनमेंट करते वक्त भी आ गया था.
Okay, that is good. So, biodiversity hotspots are the places where there is enormous, obviously, biodiversity. So there are enormous number of species, and you might have noticed जब हम zones भी पढ़ रहे थे तो हमने देखा था कुछ zones में बहुत ज्यादा biodiversity और कुछ में बिल्कुल नहीं है. So these regions are the regions of biodiversity hotspots. So some of the species, so not some of the species, most of the species are restricted in some of the areas which have very much favorable conditions. जैसे tropical area, tropical region लगा लो. So it has ample rainfall and temperature, and due to which a lot of biodiversity is existing in those areas. So be it the Western Ghats or the Northeast, so वहाँ पे major tropical type का climate है, इसीलिए there is species richness. So species are not evenly distributed on our planet. It is restricted to some areas where the temperature and climatic conditions are very much favorable, and these areas now have higher number of endemic species. So this is actually making them a center for concentration of species diversity. So a lot of species is growing in that area only. So these areas are the biodiversity hotspot. So इसमें दो points आते हैं. एक point तो हमने discuss कर लिया कि enormous biodiversity होनी चाहिए, बहुत सारे endemic species होने चाहिए, species number काफी ज्यादा होना चाहिए. So that is one point. Second, that this area should be threatened. So obviously अगर biodiversity ज़्यादा है तो obviously it would be exploited more, so it would be under enormous threat. So this point is also taken into account when we discuss about the biodiversity hotspots. So you have to focus on 2 points. So it is the geographical region that supports number of species and it is threatened by destruction. So दोनों की points लिखना जरूरी है अगर हम hotspots को define करते हैं. So it is sustaining a number of species, then it is threatened by destruction. So these places are known as biodiversity hotspots. So these are places on earth which have high biodiversity and are threatened by human habitation or human activities. Okay, understood?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So it is a biogeographic region which is characterized by exceptional levels of endemism and by serious level of habitat loss. इसीलिए biodiversity hotspots के दो criteria है. The first is that its area must support at least 1500 vascular plants as endemics. So endemic species should be high. And second is that area must include 30% or less of its original natural vegetation. So if you see the first point, then it is catering to the biodiversity, and the second point is catering to the threat. So which is due to human activities or majorly due to human activities. So are you understanding the two criteria for biodiversity hotspots?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Second point में किसी को doubt तो नहीं है ना? That area must include 30% or less of its original natural vegetation.
No, no.
Okay. Now coming to biodiversity hotspots of the world. So in the world, we have 36 biodiversity hotspots which have been identified, and these 36 hotspots, they represent only 2.4% of Earth's land surface. So can you see how it is restricted to a very small area? And वो small area भी वो होगा जहाँ पे temperature और climatic conditions एकदम optimum होंगे. So a lot of biodiversity is existing in very less area of the earth, but then also it is crucial in supporting more than half of the world's plant species as endemics, and nearly 43% of bird, mammal, reptile and amphibian species as endemic. So 2.4% ही है area, लेकिन उतने में भी बहुत ज़्यादा biodiversity exist करती है. So in total, we have 36 biodiversity hotspots which have been identified in the world. And since biodiversity is very essential for ecosystem services, so these 36 biodiversity hotspots, they provide livelihood to more than 2 billion people on Earth. Now imagine the importance of biodiversity. Each and every species is important. Each and every species is helping in maintaining the balance of the ecosystem. So it is important for the sustenance of the ecosystem. Now coming to the Indian scenario, वैसे तो 36 hotspots है, but India में 4 ही है. So okay, I should remove this slide and I should ask, where do you think these hotspots would be? The first one.
Western Ghats.
And we will just
Himalayas.
no, in the order of the zones जैसे हमने पढ़ा था वैसे बताओ. So first one is Himalayas. So this is including the entire Indian Himalayan region. Why do you think Himalayas are coming under the aegis of biodiversity hotspots? क्या ऐसा यूनिक है हिमालयाज में जिसकी वजह से बायोडाइवर्सिटी हाई है?
Ma'am, high level of endemism species.
That is there, but
Low
no
human
endemic
intervention.
species.
Ma'am, altitude and rainfall are playing
Exactly.
the
So
most important roles.
altitude difference है, मतलब there is a variation of altitude, there is a variation of climatic conditions, rainfall, temperature. So इसीलिए Himalayan region is rich in different kinds of ecosystem. जब different kinds of ecosystem होंगे तो naturally endemic species भी बहुत सारे होंगे. And these different kinds of ecosystems are existing because Himalayas show a great diversity in terms of the altitude. Height difference ज़्यादा है जिसकी वजह से temperature और rainfall conditions differ करते हैं, and इन्हीं conditions की वजह से Himalayas में different types of ecosystems है. I hope आपने different types of ecosystems पढ़ा है. So do you know what are the different types of ecosystems? The tundra, taiga, then we have evergreen forest. So these are all different types of ecosystems, the grasslands. So Himalayas are able to support different types of ecosystem due to a variation in the altitudes. Then second biodiversity hotspot,
In the northeast.
Indo-Burma.
yeah, Indo-Burma. So it is including the northeast India. Northeast India and also the Andaman groups of islands. So this is again very rich in biodiversity, as it is a rainfall is abundance, and rainfall is in abundance, and temperature is also very favorable. Then the third one,
The Western Ghats.
वेस्टर्न घाट. तो वेस्टर्न घाट्स भी बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है. सो दीज आर आइडेंटिफाइड बाय यूनेस्को एज द वर्ल्ड्स 8 हॉटेस्ट हॉटस्पॉट्स ऑफ बायोडाइवर्सिटी. तो यहाँ पे भी स्पीशीज एंडेमिज्म बहुत हाई है. सो इट इज अगेन अ वेरी वेरी favorable area for many species to thrive. And the last one is the Sunderlands. So it includes Nicobar group of islands. So did you notice a thing that वेस्टर्न घाट्स और नॉर्थ ईस्ट इंडिया तो आ गया, साथ में आइलैंड्स भी आए हैं. सो आइलैंड्स, दे आल्सो हैव अ लॉट ऑफ endemic plant species, and their biodiversity is also high, as these are not much disturbed by the human activities. थोड़ा तो डिस्टर्बेंस होगा बिकॉज दे आर कमिंग अंडर द कैटेगरी ऑफ बायोडाइवर्सिटी हॉटस्पॉट्स, बट रिटेंशन काफ़ी ज़्यादा है. दैट इज मेजरली ड्यू टू not much disturbance by the humans. So if we see in the map, so these are the regions where biodiversity is restricted to. Clear?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Wait. Yeah. Now coming to the IUCN Red List. Have you heard about this before?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can anyone explain?
It's a book which contains the data of species that are already extinct or that are facing the threats of extinction.
Okay.
Or vulnerable risk.
या तो सिर्फ उसी से रिस्ट्रिक्टेड नहीं है, होलिस्टिक डेटा है. Holistic data of the status of the plant or animal species. So International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, it was established in the year 1964, and it has evolved to become the world's most comprehensive information source on the global extinction risk status of animal, fungus, and plant species. So it is giving us comprehensive information as well as global extinction risk. So IUCN publishes red data list. So it is giving us information about the current status of the species, and they do enormous surveys in almost every country, and the field surveys are very very thorough, and based on their surveys they classify plants and animals into different categories, and these are all enlisted in the red data list. So red data list is a critical indicator of the health of the world's biodiversity. Okay?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
it is a powerful tool to inform and catalyze action for biodiversity conservation. तो listing की जरूरत क्यों है हमें? Why do we need to analyze plants and animal resources and then we have to make a list? क्यों करना है? क्यों जरूरी है? So that we can be aware, we can be informed, and then we can take up some action for biodiversity conservation. Not only biodiversity conservation, but also policy change. And then we can protect these natural resources in a better manner. So it provides information about range, population size, habitat, ecology, use or disuse or trade, threats, and conservation actions. So that are necessary for the sustenance of species. So IUCN Red List, it is used by the governmental agencies, wildlife departments, then some of the NGOs, so natural resource planners, educational organizations, students, and almost by everyone if they are working if we are working in relation to the biodiversity. So these days, the red list process has become a massive enterprise involving the IUCN Global Species Program. So it is also doing massive efforts to classify the plants and animals. So IUCN Red List is the most indispensable product it is today. So it is very important if we want to analyze the species. And they have assessed many species groups, mammals ho ya amphibians ho, birds ho, even coral reefs have been very comprehensively assessed by the IUCN. So it is indicating a barometer of life. So that is why IUCN is known as IUCN's red list is known as the complete barometer of life. And why do you think this barometer is important? Because the biodiversity is rapidly declining. So there are more than there are more than around lakh species on the IUCN red list which are under the threats, and more than 37,000 species are threatened with extinction, and this is including 41% of amphibians, 34% of conifers, and so on. So itni zyada species are at the verge of extinction. So इसीलिए ये लिस्ट बनाना बहुत ज़रूरी है, and this is known as complete barometer of life. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes, ma'am.
this list is crucial not only for helping to identify those species which are needing targeted recovery, but it is also focusing on the conservation of such species. मतलब वो identify तो कर रहा है, साथ साथ उनको rehabilitate भी कर रहा है. Like it is taking up steps and providing us strategies with which we can refurbish those species, or we can bring back those species from extinction. So IUCN Red List, so it is helping to guide and inform future conservation of species. Now we all know it has put species according to some categories. So there are 7 or 8 categories which is in which these species are being put into. The first one is the extinct. So very easy for you to understand. Extinct matlab collapsed. So now this species is no longer present on the geographical locations where it was found earlier. Can you give an example of the extinct species?
Dodo.
Dodo bird.
Yeah.
Messenger pigeon.
Then second category is the extinct in wild. So wild और cultivated plants में difference तो पता है ना? Wild
Yes,
is the
ma'am.
natural variety, whereas cultivated is the domesticated variety, which is the improved and which is being uh, which is in regular cultivation, and which is serving the demands of the society. So these are the cultivation species. So extinct in wild is actually the extinction of the wild form of that species. तो cultivation में तो present है, but wild form में it has already got extinct. So the species is present in captivity or as a naturalized population well outside the past range. So it is not growing as wild. So wild variety extinct हो गई, so it is extinct in wild. So then we come to critically endangered. Critically endangered, the population is declining rapidly, and if we do not check it, then it will become extinct. The next one after critically endangered is the endangered species. So these species are now facing the risk of extinction, but the risk is not as high as the critically endangered. So वही natural processes है, habitat loss, poaching and other anthropogenic activities are making these endangered species to go to the brink and be classified as critically endangered. So this is pushing the endangered species to the brink of extinction. So if we do not check it, if we do not remove or address the threats, then obviously these species will become extinct in the near future. Now coming the next category, this is the vulnerable species. So vulnerable species में भी यही हो रहा है that the population of the species is declining, but still it is much less than the endangered or critically endangered. Factors again are similar. So you have habitat loss, you have deforestation and other developmental or anthropogenic activities which are leading to a loss. So if these species are left unchecked, then they will obviously be out of control and they will become endangered, and then after that critically endangered, and eventually they will get extinct. So if the threat continues adversely, then their survival rate will decline further. Now we have another category. This is near threatened. So these species are not qualified for critically endangered, endangered or vulnerable. So, but they are still under the scrutiny. So they will come into the category of threats. So that is why these are kept in near threatened. And we have another category which is the least concern. So this is in abundance, and we do not need to worry about it much. So I can give you one activity on this. Can you find some of the plants and animals which are belonging to each one of the category and submit it as an activity on the teams by tomorrow?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. सबको समझ में आ गया? हर एक कैटेगरी के कुछ प्लांट्स और एनिमल्स लिख के you have to submit.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay?
Yes,
मैम
ma'am.
नॉट ऑन टुमारो प्लीज।
What?
हम कल का मत दो, थोड़ा टाइम दे क्योंकि मैम ऑलरेडी और भी असाइनमेंट्स।
This is not an assignment. This is just a very small activity.
या मैम।
Take 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, you can give it by day after tomorrow, not a problem.
या मैम 16 should be fine.
Okay. Okay. So we have discussed all the categories of the IUCN Red List. So there is also another category which is data deficient. So uska data ही नहीं है. So no information is available which can be thought upon, and due to this we cannot comment upon the abundance or disturbance or distribution of these species, and we can also not estimate its risk of extinction. Okay, so these are the
Yes, ma'am.
few categories, and it is conserving biodiversity is really very important because more than 37,000 species are threatened with extinction, and 41% are the amphibians, 26% are the mammals. We have also conifers, which are uh, plants, which are the trees restricted to the coniferous forest. We have pine trees. So these are all under the categories of conifers. So conifers. So not only animals, but plant species are also threatened. Then birds are threatened, sharks are threatened, and we also have coral reefs which are threatened. I hope you all know what are coral reefs.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
This is also facing threats of extinction. So since we have talked about biodiversity, so बहुत पूरा biodiversity अच्छे से देख लिया. What is biodiversity? How it is spread? What are the different kinds of biodiversities? How we can even measure the biodiversity? Then we have also seen that how this biodiversity is distributed in our country. Then we also studied about the IUCN Red List. So why such effort is being made to study biodiversity? Why do you think so?
So that the ecosystem or the environment level could not be disturbed.
So that
Ecosystem level could not be disturbed. Like for example, like in food webs, like a single trophic level gets destroyed, then the other trophic levels also die accordingly.
yeah.
And ma'am, recently sustainable development is something every country is focusing on, and for that, ma'am, biodiversity is very important.
How?
Ma'am, because the resources, most of the resources we rely on, we get from the nature only. And ma'am, if the nature gets harmed, it will directly, ma'am, affect the development and the work of
Yeah.
the humans as
So
well.
balance of the ecosystem would be disrupted. So we are studying biodiversity because it has enormous value in the environment. So be it sustenance of the ecosystems, maintenance of homeostasis. So it is each and every species is contributing to environment. Each and every species is contributing to sustenance of the ecosystem. कोई भी एक extinct हो जाता है, so then there are ripples in the entire ecosystem. So bees वाला example तो हमने discuss किया ही था, if you remember. So even that small bee species, if it gets extinct, then it will hamper a lot of plant species. So there will not be proper pollination. So again, it will put ecosystem under a tremendous pressure. So that is why each and every species is important. And collectively biodiversity जो है वो ecosystem को sustain कर रहा है. So green plants, they are producing oxygen, they are reducing carbon dioxide, they are helping to maintain the biogeocycle, so they are protecting soil. So each and everything is taken care of in the ecosystem, and this is being done in close collaboration with the biodiversity. So green plants, they are fixing up sun's energy into the ecosystem, and then they are also acting as the carbon sink. So because they use carbon dioxide and produce oxygen. So that is why they are maintaining the balance of the gases also, and not only gases but other nutrients also. So वो सारा level biodiversity ही maintain कर रहा है. And also it is helping to reduce the greenhouse effect when it is acting as a carbon sink. And so greenhouse effect को अभी कम करना बहुत ज़रूरी है, otherwise the entire ecosystem will get disrupted. So there will be rise in the temperature of the earth, the polar ice caps will melt, sea level will rise, and there will be submergence of low lying areas in the world. And greenhouse effect is also contributing to climate change. When there will be climate change, then there will be a lot of natural calamities. There the ecosystem productivity will reduce a lot. So that is why everything is interconnected. So ऐसा नहीं है कि ecosystem में सब discrete unit की तरह exist करते हैं. No, nothing is independent in the ecosystem. Each and every component of ecosystem is interdependent. So all these effects are interlinked, and it is hold it together with the help of biodiversity. अगर आप soil का ही example लेते हो, so soil soil को bind करने के लिए plants play a great role. So the roots of the soil are bound by the plants. So if the plant cover is there, if the biodiversity is there, soil is there. Otherwise, it will be all lost. It will be eroded. So if the soil will be eroded, then it is again a vicious cycle. There will be no biodiversity. So it is a cause and consequence effect which we are looking in terms of the value of biodiversity. So soil बनना भी या nutrients का recycle होना, cleansing of air and water. So this is all contributed by biodiversity. So ये तो ecosystem sustenance services है. Now we take up a lot of resources which comes from the biodiversity in our day-to-day lives. The food, clothing, housing, energy, medicine. So it is all coming from biodiversity side, that चाहे directly आए या indirectly आए, but it is coming from the biological diversity which is present in the biosphere. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So even urban communities or urban settlements, so whatever goods we are using or whatever services which we are using are directly or indirectly derived from the biodiversity. That is why biodiversity is enormously important for our ecosystem, and that is why we are studying biodiversity in great detail. So this was the holistic view of the value of biological diversity. So now this value is further divided into subcategories. So एक holistic picture तो हमें मिल ही गया है, but अब हमने different categories में divide किया है biodiversity के values को. So the first value in that is the consumptive value. So just remember that consumptive value is related to consumption. So it is a direct utilization of the resource. So direct utilization कब होता है? जब हम उसे food की तरह use करते हैं या fuel wood की तरह use करते हैं या fodder की तरह या timber की तरह. So we are just directly utilizing the resources. Okay?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we can also increase the consumptive value of the biodiversity. और हम कैसे increase कर सकते हैं consumptive value? Can you think of some examples? Like how can you increase the consumptive value? उनका direct consumption हो जाए biodiversity का. What can we do for it?
Ma'am, maybe researching on the wild plants to use them as crops.
You are close. Very good answer, Shivank. So he said that researching on wild plants. So if we are researching on wild plants, what we are doing? We are improving it. We are improving some of the traits. And how can we improve the traits of wild varieties? Suppose कोई wild plant है, उसका आपको yield बढ़ाना है. Grain का कोई cereal plant है. You want to increase the grain size. You want to increase the grain yield. You want to make it disease resistant. So how will you do it? Obviously,
Ma'am,
these
different traits are taken from different species and mix them to make a new
exactly.
individual.
So you are again very close. So what happens is, उस दिन हमने genes के बारे में पढ़ा था ना?
yes,
Genetic
Yes, ma'am.
diversity
Genetic
में?
modification में.
Yeah, exactly. So we are engineering the genes. So we are identifying these traits. मतलब कौन सा variety कौन से gene से control होता है. Genes के दो copies हैं and these two copies they control a trait and sometimes it is possible that two genes are controlling. ऐसा नहीं है हमेशा, मतलब वो तो मैं simplify करके बताती हूँ कि एक gene से एक trait control होता है, but naturally system is much more complicated. So sometimes it is that only one gene is controlling a single trait and sometimes two or three or maybe more. So we have to fish out those genes which are controlling these superior traits of disease resistance, superior traits of increased yield, nutritional value of the grain. So after identifying these superior traits, what do? We isolate these genes and we put these in वाइल्ड वेराइटीज या वो वेराइटीज जिसको हमें इम्प्रूव करना है. So through this, what we are doing, we are introducing new traits in new varieties and we are improving them and we are increasing their consumptive value. And this phenomenon of changing the genetic makeup or introduction of genes is known as genetic engineering. We are just engineering the gene. कोई जीन हटा रहे हैं, कोई जीन नया ऐड कर रहे हैं, we are raising transgenic organisms. Clear?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is done by genetic engineering. So this is a way we can improve the consumptive value. So, okay. Now coming to the economic value. Obviously, this is very straightforward. Economic value just gives an idea about the economic potential of biodiversity. So it is used in trade and export and import. So it has economic value linked to it. So be it the food, fodder, medicinal or ethical and social components of biodiversity, it is all having a economic potential. So you can see that major fuel sources are by burning fuel wood or fossil fuels. Fossil fuel भी biodiversity से आए हैं. So this is again giving an idea about the economic value of biodiversity. So some resources which are very important are sold at high prices. So again, it is determining the economy. And also various food resources are imported and exported. Basmati rice, mangoes, everything is imported and exported. Everything has a so every biodiversity, every resource which is related to biodiversity has economic potential, and not only the uh, resource as a whole but also its derivatives. तो अगर हम देखें तो many chemicals are extracted from flora and fauna, and these are catering to many industries, and also they have medicinal values. So all these resources have economic potential. Now coming to the productive use value. So productive use value is the prospect, and we are keep on searching for the potential genetic properties in plants or animals जिससे हम उसे better use कर पाए, and we have a prospect. So we are using the bio-rich areas to prospect the uses. So we are also working upon developing better varieties of crop and developing better livestock. So this is the productive use value. So we are just increasing the productivity over here, and this is known as the productive use value. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you understand by biological prospecting? Biological prospecting पहले पढ़ा है किसी ने? So it is just identifying some of the plant species or maybe bacterial species for its uses. So identifying new uses. So that is known as biological prospecting. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So these are exploration of natural resources for small molecules. So it may be macromolecules and these may be used as medicines. इसीलिए pharmaceutical companies are interested in biological prospecting of plants. So they are keep on identifying new plants and they are exploring the potential of plants against various diseases. So plant लेते हैं, plant का extract बनाते हैं and they check for disease model. So it is improving any disease or not. And then if they find that the plant extract is useful, then what they do, they just filter the extract or they separate or they find the that chemical in the extract and isolate it and make it as a medicine. So you can see there is a table in this slide. So I have shown the plant source and the drug which has been obtained from it and its used and why it is used. So can you see that codeine and morphine, which are good painkillers or very efficient painkillers, so these are being obtained from opium poppy. And then we have the very famous caffeine from the tea and coffee. Majorly coffee में ज़्यादा caffeine होता है. So this caffeine, पता है ना, सुबह सुबह कॉफी पीते हैं, why? Because
Yes,
it
ma'am.
is stimulating the central nervous system. So this is due to caffeine which is present in the coffee. It is actually stimulating your central nervous system and you become active very soon after drinking coffee. And we have certain enzymes in some fruits, जैसे papain है, bromelain है. Papain is in papaya and bromelain is in pineapple. So these are digestive enzymes. So these help in the process of digestion. Bromelain it also controls inflammation. जब कोई infection होता है तो obviously to prevent that infection to spread in the entire body, the tissue gets inflamed. So we can reduce that inflammation through bromelain. And can you see vincristin and vinblastin in the table? So these were the first drugs which were used in chemotherapeutic regimens for cancer. तो ये plant से ही आए थे. We have Catharanthus roseus or Vinca rosea, which is also known as Sadabahar plant. So it yielded the most it actually yielded the pioneer chemicals for chemotherapy, the vinblastin and vincristin. So these are used against cancer. So these are used as anti-cancerous agents. So first of all they were used against leukemia. फिर उसके बाद इसको दूसरे cancers में भी use किया गया for chemotherapy. And then we also have Taxol, which is again obtained from Pacific yew plant, and it is again an anti-cancerous plant. Then we have quinone, which is obtained from cinchona, and it is anti-malarial. And not only different kinds of drugs or chemicals, we also have antibiotics which we can obtain from living organisms. So we have penicillin, which is obtained from fungi. So this is again a antibiotic which is very efficient in killing bacteria or restricting bacteria. So this is all about biological prospecting. So you are taking up small molecules or chemicals from the living organisms and you are using it against several diseases, and this is particularly explored by the pharma companies. This is again an added economic value of the biodiversity. So it is essential for the industrial and economic development in the country. तो जो अगर ये medicinal molecules अगर हमने identify कर लिए, then we can set up industries of production of these molecules. So we can set up bioreactors and we can always enhance the production of these compounds and उस मतलब we can make generic drugs out of it and then we can export it. So we can support trade. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now coming to the social values. So in several societies and traditions, biodiversity is used. घर पे कभी कभी पूजा होती है या फिर कोई भी फंक्शन हो रहा है. So we have certain rituals associated with it, customs and traditions associated with it. So in that traditions, have you noticed कितने सारे fruits and vegetables and leaves of plants we use? Have you noticed?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
these are the social values associated with the biodiversity. So it is used in traditions. And what was the basic basis for it? हम क्यों हमने biodiversity को अपने day to day rituals या customs या traditions में use करना start किया? Why? What was the need?
Ma'am, to preserve the natural.
Exactly. It was their preservation. So, in a way, if you are using in your traditions, you are linking it to religion. So, you can say that this leaf or that leaf is very sacred and we should preserve it and we should not pluck it या ऐसे करके आप preserve करने का, if you are linking it to religion, then you are making masses understand the value of this resource. So you are giving it a social value. So this was done all for providing protection to the biodiversity, or you can say conserving the biodiversity. Okay. So next we have the ethical and the moral values. What do you understand by ethical and moral values? Obviously that since we are the most evolved organism on this earth, so we are restricting other species. We are exploiting other species. We are torturing many animals for our benefits. So each and every species on this earth has a right to exist. So in ethical or moral values, what we are looking at is it is the it is the need for protection of all the life forms. तो सारे plant या animal species का equal right है earth पे exist करना. So we need to protect it. So this is covered under the umbrella of ethical and moral values. So a very good example of this is sacred groves. So forests are being preserved by the tribal people in several Indian states, and these are untouched. So it is again protecting the biodiversity. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
we'll continue with the other values in the next class.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.